Ahem. Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Luce. He is Juice. Happy Tuesday, buddy. How are you doing?
Happy Tuesday. Feels like all the days are pushed and sandwiched into one. This time.
It really does.
It does,
really
doesn't it? Like
does.
it feels like just yesterday was Saturday.
Yeah.
And everything, it just seems, I don't know if I'm wrong on this, and tell me if I am, that like post Thanksgiving, dates are just dates.
Yeah.
I could not tell you what date is one of these. Even today. What is it today?
Today is the 28th of November.
Well, thank you.
Don't you worry.
Is that Coke Zero?
No, this is a Guinness juice.
Oh. Sorry, I looked red in the thing here.
Oh, no, sorry. It's black. It's black. Yeah, it's because Juice, like the daylight level outside, it's the perfect time of year for some dark beer. So
yeah, it is.
I'm getting on the Guinness train. I've been hot on this train for a little bit now, but no, man, I'm right there with you. It really is. And I think especially for us baseball fans, and that's Juice why I'm wearing my sunglasses today, because I'm pretending my light here is the sun. And I want to be at Wrigley Field somewhere around like June 17th, just basking in the sun in left field. And all of that starts with the winter meetings. As my dad says here in the comments, till the winter meetings, 100%. That's where my mind is at. And he and I got into a very long, not debate, just discussion earlier.
Embrace debate.
Yeah, we debate, but today it was more just, what do you want to see? What do you want to see? I think that's what every Cubs fan's like asking themselves. What do we want to see this Cubs team do? And Juice, they have not disappointed because tons of rumors have now come out, and this is kind of where we're going to start the structure of our show here, Juice, because we're going to talk through some rumors. We're going to talk Glasnow Bieber rumors. We're going to talk Bo Bichette rumors. And then we're going to transition to a little Boba Fett, baby.
I didn't know that this was a Star Wars podcast.
I didn't either, but Hayden Christensen playing Anakin is one of the greatest acting roles in a saga ever, and you
can't
tell me otherwise.
Are you a Star Wars nerd?
Un poquito.
Okay, like you know it, but you don't know it.
I know it, but like if we get into like the books and the cartoons and stuff, I haven't seen that.
I don't read books.
Oh, we're only 3 minutes into the show. We're already off the rails because Juice,
Boba Fett.
But to continue, we're also going to talk winter meetings preview, kind of what we want to see, maybe what we think we're going to see. And that's going to transition us into some other rumors, some other news surrounding the Cubs, maybe some bold predictions, Juice. You and I, we like doing the hot predictions. We need something warm to warm up the cold winter weather outside. And that might be in the form of hot takes a little bit tonight, Juice. And then a little Ohtani contract conversation at the end here. Just to continue what you and I were talking off air, folks, in case you guys didn't know, we talk baseball probably for a good 10, 15 minutes before we actually go live here, just to kind of get the juices flowing. And today's contract discussion was around that of J-Rod in Seattle and how that it could apply to Shohei Ohtani. So we're going to get into that to kind of close out today's show. Juice, let's jump into this damn thing, shall we? The Cubs are in the pitching market, according to John Morrissey of the old MLB Insiders Club. He says the stove is getting hot for Shane Bieber and Tyler Glasnow, and two teams in the NL Central at the heart of that rumor, the Cincinnati Reds and our Chicago Cubs. Juice, thoughts on these two names? We've heard Glasnow's name a lot. I think there's a lot of sense to make with the Bieber name as well because of the Carter Hawkins connection to Cleveland. Juice, what are your thoughts on the Cubs being in the mix for these two veteran righties?
Yeah, I think this was a market that we've identified pretty early. I think, too, it shows that some of the free agent pitchers that are out there now are maybe not exactly what the Cubs are looking for, maybe outside of maybe a few short names, and they just don't want to pigeonhole themselves into hoping that like a Yamamoto is going to sign and walk through the door because there's so many suitors. I think at least with trading and dealing with teams, you know the prospect capital, and you know who you're giving up, and you know that person, no matter what, has a contract ready to go, and they're going to be on your team, at least into next year. So
Yeah.
I get buying pitching. I think it's funny because if you look back, recent Cub history, and they brought in a guy like John Lester around the same time they brought in a new manager. So truly, history does repeat itself. Not in a trade, much more in free agency. But I think we all got on this panel and talked about it in our recent show. If you didn't listen to that one, please do, because it was a nice long doozy of fun back and forth baseball talk. But I don't know. I think that maybe the right move is to acquire some pitching via trade, and then maybe you go in there and go nuts with another one via free agency, and then maybe you kind of double up and play the hitter market after that. Seems like Jed, right off the bat, is kind of putting himself obviously in the Ohtani market, which he should. He's a big market.
100%.
And then like post that, it seems like if you read between the tea leaves on anything else, it's a lot of pitching. Like you're not hearing, those small, guys that you could be, in on. I mean, obviously they signed a left-hander out of Japan. And post that, there's not been much, but all the rumors that you do see is linked to pitching. And I do agree. I think that it's time to use the parts of that farm system that maybe you don't believe in, that maybe somebody else will, because, maybe they're higher would be higher in their system. And there's somebody that's, looks at these people or these players with, higher aspirations, or maybe just a better fit, because the Cubs are pretty stacked in the outfield. They're pretty stacked in the infield, and they're really stacked, in starting pitching in terms of the minor league system. So why not buy a proven, commodity in like a Bieber or a Glasnow? But those two names don't surprise me, because I think if you look at those teams, the Rays, they certainly like to, pull trades like this right before they get to an extension, move somebody.
100%.
And Cleveland's kind of like in a weird middling area where they can always seem to develop new pitching for cheaper. And who knows if they're going to be competing in that Central Division more or less, next year, because they are kind of stuck in the mud, it seems like.
Yeah, 100%. And Juice, before I add on to your thoughts there, Jeremiah, to start the show today. Yo, we back. He says, loves that Hawk wants to be immortalized as a Cub in the Hall of Fame. That is news as well in the circle of Cubs baseball. But Juice, if you want to join the conversation, or anybody does, head on over to the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button. You know when we go live, you can join everybody in the comment section, just like those that we've been sharing so far here tonight. And Juice, to share my thought with you, I'm right there with you. These are teams that are typically in this trade market, right? Because the Guardians typically don't carry a lot of salary, and Bieber is, got hurt at the end of last year, and they might be ready to move on with his contract if they get the right return. And Glasnow, $25 million, you mentioned, before an extension kicks in, the 1-year extension. Tampa knew it. They said, we're going to get him out there at a good price, that teams are still going to give us something for him because he's one guaranteed year at least. But at the end of the day, Juice, what this set of rumors tells me is the Cubs want very near-term flexibility on their books, because Glasnow's the 1 year at 25, and Bieber is due arbitration 3, which is going to be somewhere around 12.2 mil. But he's then going to head off into free agency as well at the end of next season. So these are both, kind of low risk, high reward moves because he's in the building. Maybe they do start to extend guys that they want to, maybe 2 and 3 year deals. Maybe they try to be like the Atlanta Braves a little bit, just get guys in the building and then get them on a favorable contract if it all works out. These are really interesting moves that give them so much what if flexibility going into next winter then, because of the money off the books again. They're really operating on a year-to-year basis right now with some of these things, and I don't think that's a bad thing in terms of creating continuity, Juice.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like, as I sit and look at both players too, it's interesting how they, there's a million different ways to skin a cat, as they say.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see, their rates in terms of, putting the ball in play and ground ball rate and things like that. They're not very different from each other. I think a lot of this comes down to like health. Obviously, Glass now has been one of those question marks in terms of, how healthy can he, remain. Bieber seems to, take the ball more times than not. So I don't think you can go wrong with either. It's almost interesting to see if Jed would play against both of them and just kind of think, is this one going to be cheaper than this one? And can I get the same, outlook with my, pitching infrastructure that I've built already, and kind of, work both ways to see. But it'll be interesting is that they realistically, and I know Scott just put it in here, they could get both. They really could if they wanted to. They really could, but I would imagine that won't be the case. But I don't know. What do
it's just because Juice, you got to think about it this way. Like, I was thinking about this a little bit earlier, and I actually had this question teed up for you, and then Scott teed us up onto this conversation. I wanted to ask, let's say the trade for either one of them, right? Like it, in terms of what you're giving up, maybe not the same players necessarily, but same design, let's say, right? You're probably giving up a top 10 prospect, probably more on the back end of the top 10 than the front end. Unless they really, if they feel like they can get rid of a certain guy to maybe lessen the load and they're okay with that, then maybe. But let's say it's a 6 to 10 prospect, maybe another 15 to 20 guy or 20 to 25 guy, and then another just prospect, maybe a guy that's just outside that top 30 potentially. If you had to give that up for both of them, like equal identical trades, you're making that trade 2 times. Do you do it with the Cubs prospect pool, giving up 2 guys out of this top 10 in the back half, 2 of those middle of the road 15 to 25 prospects, and a guy just outside your top 30? Are you willing to do that twice to get both of them and get greedy, as my dad says here in the comments?
I think a lot of it too depends on the names that are in this trade. I think it's hard to sit here and put them in tiers and go, yeah, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, because if I'm giving up, like let's say that one of them is James Triantos. Like I like Triantos a lot, and I'm not saying that like I want to hold prospects. I don't, because I think that there's
Eckerton. I like Eckerton.
Yeah, right. There's our. You don't even know who Eckerton is.
You don't even know who Eckerton is.
There's our money ball for the episode. But I think that there's like certain names I'd be, I'm okay with that. It's going to be tough to. I think that these names get more than that though. I really do, even on 1-year deals, because they're just okay. Especially Bieber. Bieber's like a proven commodity to me. He very is. Proven. Like he's and Glass now, maybe that's a little less. Maybe the return is a little less because of the the injuries and maybe the Rays are in a weird situation too, where they value guys differently in your system because that's just what they do. They seem to take these guys that are almost in the middle of the system, and maybe that's the way you get both. Maybe you work with the Rays to where you're not giving up, those top 10 or just outside of it, and you're giving more of like maybe the bottom 20, but they look at it as like they're 19-year-olds or 18-year-olds that will project in their system. So when they can continue this, run of just bringing these younger guys up, and maybe that's the way you get there. And then Cleveland's the one who values, maybe just outside, of those 2 top 10s. And that's how you get there with getting both. That's a possibility. Maybe. But I don't know. It's interesting too to think like who else is these are very public negotiations, which also speaks sometime to, just the what do you call it? Like the teams or
Yeah.
the agents, or there could be a lot of jostling around here because both of them are going to be due for a contract.
That's a good point. Juice, one last question for you on this topic. I want your honest answer before we start to move on here. If you had to pick one, who do you want more?
I'll take Shane Bieber. I'll take the almost guaranteed health. That's just me. And I like Glasnow a lot. I'm not going to be mad if any of those guys come back. I think Glasnow may have more upside in terms of like what he could be.
Yeah.
Than like we know what Bieber is.
Yeah, that's fair. I think
he's younger too. Bieber's younger.
Bieber is younger. So that's what I was going to say, Juice, because I think for the longest time I personally was leaning the Glasnow side because I'm a sucker for the Rays are the second team I follow. I like Tyler Glasnow a lot. I've been kind of banging that drum, I feel like, for a little over a season and a half now. He would fit perfectly. I think dominance, he had an incredible year last year that he finally was healthy for. It took him a while to get back from the injury, but once he did, he looked great. If you get that version of Glasnow, this team is on a whole nother level in terms of their starting rotation. That being said, to your point, Bieber is only 28. He's due a lot less money. As my dad says here, he picks Bieber for cost because Bieber, again, 12.2 versus 25. You have a little more flexibility with a Shane Bieber in terms of what else you do this offseason. But on top of that, like you said, maybe a little more proven commodity, excluding the 2020 season. In 2018, he made 19 starts, but then he made 33 in 19, 31 in 22. He had a little bit of injury in 21 with just 16 starts. He made 21 this year before the injury. But Juice, that 2022 season for Shane Bieber, 13 wins, a 2.88 ERA, 31 starts. He had a complete game and an elusive 200 inning mark. He's a workhorse if he's healthy. Mm-hmm. And that might be something the Cubs really like and really want to see. So it's going to be crazy either way. I think if they get either one of them, I could lean either way. It really just depends. How do the Cubs want to attack this puzzle? Because Craig Counsell said it when he was hired. They showed him all the different ways to get to the trophy at the top, right? It's a big old spider web. This just might be one of those little turns that you got to take in order to create that part of the plan. We'll see where they go with it. It's going to be interesting. Alop says here, he says, Ron wanted Stroh a few years ago and got it. What does he want this year? Perhaps the trend will continue. That would be cool. Because I said I want Shohei Ohtani. So I feel like I banged that drum enough where maybe if this whole like good juju thing keeps coming out, I'll keep getting guys that I want. Again, we're not superstitious. We're just a little stitious around here, folks. But Juice, I like your analysis there, buddy. Let's go ahead and move on because there's another player in the rumor mill, a bigger name that the Cubs were attached to. And this kind of felt like it came out of absolutely nowhere and somebody just started it. But then this thing got a little bit of national traction, like more than I ever expected it to. So let's talk about it. The Bo Bichette rumors. Or as you call them, Boba Fett rumors.
Boba Fett.
To play third base on top of it. Like, this whole philosophy was already put out there, and I think that's a little bit made up. But maybe the interest in Bichette is truly a thing, and maybe that is the plan of them saying, hey, go play third base. You, Dansby Swanson, and Nico Horner's a hell of an infield with some new look version of a first baseman, most likely, assuming Bellinger's not back playing that spot. But the proposals felt ridiculous. 2 top 5 prospects. It felt like a really high thing for a guy who is only under contract for 2 more years at, I believe it's 13 and 17 million. And then he's a free agent. He's very young. He's got a lot of upside, but Juice, how much would you be willing to give up for Bo Bichette if these rumors really have any kind of traction?
Not much. It's not the knock on the player. I just think even in house you can get there with to recreate Boba Fett in your own way. I just think that there's a cheaper route where you just bring back a guy like maybe Candelario and keep Christopher Morel and sit him at third. I don't understand why Christopher Morel doesn't get time at third base. I really don't. It's baffling to me. I know he wasn't great at that spot, but then again, he didn't have any feel for it, and he didn't get a lot of reps at it.
Yeah.
I don't understand. And he looked pretty damn good at second when he did fill in a lot of time at second base. So you would think like he could play the infield. It's not a matter of like his glove. I think he's got a good arm. I don't understand. Don't get me wrong, it'd be great, but then again, it's another shortstop you're adding into this infield, and I don't know if I'm a huge fan of that. I mean, I want pure third base for this next guy. Like that's your position.
Yeah.
I don't want moving people out of what they are. And two, like I just don't believe it at all. I don't think Toronto's in a kind of win now moment too, where they could definitely make a push, and they are pretty much trying to.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been sneakily like linked to Shohei Ohtani. That's been another thing that
sneakily linked to Cody Bellinger as well.
Right. I mean, so it looks like they're going to spend. I think this was just, like you said earlier, it was an online internet rumor that started. It slowly turned into national news because there are trade packages that somewhat make sense. I mean, the two match up very well in terms of, but I mean, maybe Ben Brown. I consider a Ben Brown, a Hayden Wisniewski, and maybe Triantos could go in that deal, and then I'm good. That's my deal. Take it or leave it, because I don't want to give up too much for a guy like you said. He's got 2 more years left on that deal, and two, the deal isn't. I mean, you could probably have Candelario for $10 million a year, and he was a 6-win player or 5-win player last year. I mean, for nothing, you don't have to give up any prospect capital. So I think there's ways to recreate this to where you're not. I like trading for pitching. I don't really like trading for hitters unless it's like proven 50 home run guy, and that's why I like. Pete Alonso, fine, trade for him. But like Bichette, like he's good. He's a good player, but he just doesn't get me excited to see him at third every day. He just doesn't.
That's very fair. And Juice, you kind of put this out there when you were saying you didn't believe it. Just a tinfoil hat theory that Alop shares here. He says, you guys think there's a chance the Cubs are leaking these rumors to show Ohtani they're going to be aggressive and try to win? Surely they can't be linked to everyone, because Hader was also rumored as well. And that's true. The Cubs have just been magically linked to Josh Hader all offseason, and I don't understand it, because I highly doubt this team pays for any kind of serious bullpen pitching. Like, they're not going to pay Hader price. They're not going the Kimbrel thing is never happening again, folks. I just don't see that happening because of how they want to kind of operate their pitching. Homegrown, cost efficient, not spending a ton of money like they had to for the first World Series, and then have nothing behind it when those guys eventually give out. It's just, I agree. I don't see it.
All these rumors to me this is exactly what probably happened. Jed picked up the phone, called Hader's agent, said, "What's your number?" Okay, cool. Click. That's technically connected.
That is true.
I think that the way you stack this, and it's not easy in the Twitterverse or anything in terms of these rumors, stack it as if you hear it from multiple spots and over and over and over again, it's negotiation. If you hear it once and it goes away, it's a check-in. It's a, hey, what's your number? Hey, what's your interest? That's how I look at these. And to me, like that Boba Fett, that Bo Bichette rumor, and then the Hader. There was another one too that I was like, I'm trying to go back, and there was another player where I went, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, it was the Kyle Gibson. The Kyle Gibson earlier. They're not getting Kyle Gibson.
You mean St. Louis Cardinal Kyle Gibson?
Yeah. Let them have all the home run pitchers, by all means.
Oh,
And I love Sonny Gray. Don't get
I
me
was gonna
wrong.
say we need to talk about that, Juice. How do you
But
feel about Sonny Gray
but
going
poor
to the
Sonny
Cardinals?
Gray. He's going to be, that tandem bicycle thing? If there were 5 people that represented the Cardinal rotation, he's the only one pedaling. Lance Lynn, Miles Michaelis, Kyle Gibson. God, I hope the Cubs
Don't forget Steven Matz.
Yeah, Steven Matz. Remember, going to be a Cub like all the time?
Oh my goodness, I know.
Yeah, that was another tinfoil hat theory. But yeah, no, I that's how I check in on these rumors. If I hear it from more than one reporter that they're linked, it's negotiations. If I, hear it just once and it goes away, to me, it's just a check-in. It's hey, what's your number? Because maybe they're negotiating with somebody else, or maybe they have interest, but they just want to gauge the waters on how expensive it's going to be.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's all hearsay. He said, she said, and who did this and what did that, and it makes this time of the year fun, and we just need more of them. And because we need more of them, Juice, because I've been wondering, what will the Cubs do? I need the winter meetings, and they are close. December 4th through the 7th. That starts a week from yesterday. Everybody's in Nashville, all together, making moves, signing big deals, making crazy trades in like the bathrooms of the hotel they're at. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. We've been waiting for it. I know everybody listening has probably been waiting for it as well. Juice, let's get into some of the what we want to seize and all that fun hypothetical here, because there's a lot to dissect with the upcoming winter meetings. And I think we could probably just go back and forth asking each other questions of things we want to see. So I want to start with you, my friend. This is something we talked about a little bit. Is Shohei Ohtani signing next week somewhere in Major League Baseball?
Yes. That'll be done. I'm looking at the calendar here. That'll be done by the 8th.
Okay. So end of next week, Shohei's signed somewhere.
That'll be done by the 8th.
I like that. I
just, there's too much. See, this is why I feel like I'm really confident with what's coming. I'm starting to get, because it's leaked that the Dodgers had that meeting. And I actually truly do believe that Shohei Ohtani wanted to keep these meetings private.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense for him to negotiate in privacy. We haven't heard a damn thing about a Cubs meeting with Shohei Ohtani.
Nope.
We haven't. But
we haven't heard, Juice, if we're being honest, we haven't heard shit about anybody from the Cubs side of the house, right?
But you know what? It happened already. I'm about 90% sure they've already met with him.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What gives you that inkling?
The quietness of all of this. Because I think that they got into the room, and a lot of that silence of, hey, keep this hush-hush, was met with Carter and Jed and Tom keeping it quiet. You imagine how quiet they kept the Craig Counsell stuff? They have the ability to do it.
That is true.
And that is why I sit here and I'm like, I am growing. And also, too, like, so I don't follow the betting market as close as a lot of people do, but I did for this. And the Cubs pre Craig Counsell were like plus 1,100 for Shohei Ohtani. It's moved down all the way to like plus 350. And now, but now as of when I looked before we got on here, it's moved to plus 500. I think it's the teaser before the signing. So, and it's moved the other way for LA. LA has gotten more and more of the favorite. But there's been so much information about how he's met with LA already.
That's true.
And that's why I sit here and I'm like, that negotiation tactic of keeping it quiet, I think was a test for these ball clubs.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that was, and Shohei's not dumb. He's a very smart guy, and his agent is even smarter. I think that there's 3 or 4 teams that have already met with Shohei. I think the Cubs are one of them. And I think maybe 3 of the 4 are keeping it pretty secretly.
Follow-up question to that, Juice, because speaking of Shohei Ohtani, there was a report that I just saw today that Yamamoto and Ohtani are the biggest targets for the San Francisco Giants this year. Do you think that they've already met with Shohei Ohtani?
Yes. I also think water's wet. I think that report made me laugh. I was like, yeah, everybody's wanting those 2 guys. What would be interesting is if those 2 are somewhat communicating with each other on where they go.
Maybe.
Because that is, you remember back when the Bulls were pushing to get LeBron James?
Ugh.
And we
yes,
all thought LeBron
thought
would be the one domino to fall, and then that would mean Wade and Bosch would fall.
Mm-hmm.
What if, hear me out, what if there's a domino that needs to fall, and then it's Yamamoto and Shohei who join that? And maybe what if that domino was Seiya Suzuki, and that means that the Cubs are now in prime position, because it does sound like a lot of these Japanese players want to play with other Japanese players.
Yeah.
So what if Seiya Suzuki is the Dwayne Wade in this, where he gets to stay home and LeBron
his
James
buddies,
and Bosch
they come join him.
So, and I'm not going to say that they're fully going to, sign where it would take first of all, the Ricketts that's a massive amount of money. I mean, you're talking about plus $500 million for Shohei Ohtani, and then
but Juice, what if his return on investment's 200%? You make $1 billion.
See, that's
over the life of that contract.
That's the thing too. It's the interesting way of how you, and 2, we've talked about this off air. The way you offset this thing is that now that there's a streaming platform that's gone for marquee, now you're collecting the Japanese market, because now you can watch all 3 of those guys in Japan. It's going to turn into like one of those channels that you need to have in Japan. Think about that. And that's a huge market. Huge market. So I don't know, man. What if Seiya Suzuki is Dwayne Wade? What if he is? He could be.
It would be awesome. Absolutely awesome. It'd be even awesomer, Juice, if he keep playing like the player he was at the end of last season next year.
If that
bananas.
Happens, if the Cubs could somehow become
Ohtani and Suzuki go back to back,
that I need to hear that. Like,
could you imagine?
No, because I don't think it. Again, I don't know though, man. Like, you're coming over from Japan. You're trying to be the most comfortable. Why wouldn't Yamamoto be like, I'm 26 years old. Why don't I take like a 4-year deal for 175?
Yeah.
To be able to be comfortable. And then I know when I'm 29, I could double dip and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Why didn't I just think of how did I just think of that?
I mean,
then you're really only looking at spending upwards of, I mean, it's what, 550 plus another 175? I mean, that's doable. What did the Rangers?
Yeah, that's true. What did they spend? 550 or 650 maybe? I mean, it was a big off season for them, and it panned out.
That's the Rangers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking the Cubs are a bigger market.
It's true. It is true. It is true.
God, this would be
Juice. A lot likes the way you think.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people.
I don't like the way I think sometimes, though. Then I get my hopes all up, and then it just doesn't happen.
Well, that's okay. Well, I'm going to add to it because Scott said he wants the Cubs to sign a big bat and a big arm. Hopefully, they are both Japanese. Maybe winter's coming, Juice. Let's make some moves. I agree with everybody. It's going to be fun, man. There's so much building up around these Japanese superstars that are available that they could be, like you said, maybe the dominoes that fall, and maybe they're domino falling their
Like,
way to the
can
north
you
side.
let's we got to go deeper into this. I'm sorry. Like, can you imagine a starting rotation of Steele,
Yes.
Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani,
When he's healthy.
Shane Bieber, and Kyle Hendricks?
Blah.
You just keep Jameson Taillon in the bullpen at that point. And then you got Kyle's money coming off the books.
Yep. And you still have guys like Jordan Wicks. You still have guys like, Jackson Ferris a few years away, Cade Horton.
You can trade Wicks at that point.
Probably could.
There's probably a good chance that, see, this is why this is, and then your lineup, you go out and you trade for a Pete Alonso, and then you got all the Infinity Stones, and then you're just Thanos.
Juice, I want people to know that we just watched your Juice in the laboratory making the plans just in person. This was a live reaction of what Juice does.
So the plans are right here too. I do this. I make little lineups on my iPhone. Those plans were way cooler than the ones that I actually have here. Way cooler. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Hey, that's fair. I mean, that's a cool thing at hand. Juice, Ohtani, Yamamoto, the mad scientist, all those things aside, who is one strategic ad that you want the Cubs to try and make at the winter meetings?
I want him to get a bullpen arm. I want him to get Stevenson like tomorrow.
Who the Cubs have been rumored to be interested in, which was
like
a hell of a call out by you.
I know everybody laughed at me when that was my guy. Third pick, everyone's like, bullpen arm? What the hell is he doing? No, that's important. And that guy was so freaking good for the Rays.
He was
so
really
good. So, and played in the Central. It just makes so much sense. I want them to get that done before the winter meeting. Like, I want them to get it done like tomorrow. Make the deal already.
Just do it. Just do it.
Love that guy.
Hey,
and yes, and Dave Backstrom here. Yes, I do love Jordan Wicks, but I can dream, right?
They have flexibility, they have opportunity. Alab says you went to Costco and got the tinfoil in bulk so you can make your hats for days with some of your comments. Juice, as we continue on, a player that I've been mulling over quite a bit because I feel like the rumors came out really early in the offseason and they've died ever since. Do you think the Cubs are really in on Rhys Hoskins? Because that's my guy. Like, that's the guy I really want them to go get. I think you get him at maybe a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option at maybe like $15 million. Why not? If you get a guy like that, a guy who's hit 30 bombs in the majors, I don't care that he's not left-handed. You got Ohtani to do that. Rhys Hoskins would be a beautiful thumper if you can't get Alonso as well in that lineup.
Doesn't he seem like a guy who's going to wait, though, until some team needs a DH and then gives him 3 years? Like, he reminds me a lot of, like, Trey Mancini from last year. Wait. Cubs con, boom, overpay.
Do you think it'll be an overpay?
I think that whoever gets him is going to get a deal, but I think whoever also gets him is taking a huge risk. I do like Rhys Hoskins, but remember, he's coming back from a very serious injury. And I think that he could be okay. I'm just saying, like, I feel like if you wait for that market, the hitting market may get more and more desperate as some of these guys check off. And he may be in a position to capitalize financially more than he thought, coming out of an injury season. I think go ahead.
I think my thing with Hoskins, though, is like, everybody makes him out to be such this damaged set of goods. And I'm not saying that's,
No, it's not.
what you were trying to do, but I feel like there's a lot of like, well, he's coming off injury. I'm like, yeah, but like I think everybody's looking at him as like Bellinger. Like he's not a player that was like struggling and needed a change of scenery. He just got hurt. He had the Kyle Schwarber injury. It was literally the same thing because they said he was going to be able to DH in the World Series if the Phillies got there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but he's a really good baseball player. And 2021, he played only 107 games, played 41 in 2020. But Juice, 153 and 18, which was his first full year as a big leaguer. He played enough games in 17 with 50 to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. And then 2019, 160, and then 2022, 156 before the injury happened in the playoffs. So he's been relatively healthy. Like to me, this is a guy that you can get at a very reasonable number, but like he's gonna be a really good baseball player. This guy hit 34, 29, 27 in only 107 games. 30 before his ACL season. I mean, he's going to give you some thump. And I think hitting at Wrigley for right-handed hitters like him, that left center is just going to be money for him during the middle of the summer. That's the kind of guy that could give you that value and give you some more thump in this lineup without having to go get Alonso to complement a Shohei Ohtani, for example.
Yeah, and I mean, I think maybe one of those things is that if you look at his OPS plus, you can look and see like he has very similar numbers and close numbers to Pete Alonso. I mean, you could look at those OPS numbers and they're not identical, but I think that's also what kind of holds him out because maybe teams that are looking at a guy like that for the middle of their order, it's going to be more competitive than that, and opposed to waiting on it. Maybe he's in the beneficiary of like, hey, yeah, I'm coming off a serious injury, but if you look at my stats when I'm healthy and I'm playing, I'm every bit as good as Pete Alonso, and you get the same production. And that's maybe why he waits and waits. I think that's the angle for him. And you let somebody just overpay for it. I think a team will. There's just not a lot of bats out here. There's just not. And I don't know. Do you think that he's the type of guy that like you set a market with? And two, like I think he has to wait for Ohtani too because he's a good DH candidate as well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's such an interesting player.
Good. He is. I want him as a Cub. I do.
I think the nice thing is, Juice, and this is what I think with the injury, and this is why I find comfort in taking maybe a little bit of a risk on a player like him, is like he's gonna be everything you want, and he plays first base. Yeah. Like he's not running to catch a fly ball in center field like Cody Bellinger was, right? When he came back from the ankle injury, he doesn't have to worry about that. Yes, there is athleticism required to play first base. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a lot of long range movements where you have to really overly worry about the knee. As long as he is smart at first, doesn't get run over and anything like that, and he's DHing a little bit, that fits perfectly with what the Cubs want to do. Obviously, Ohtani's going to be more often than not if he ends up signing, but maybe Hoskins gets a couple of games to give his body rest, or the Cubs are comfortable. Maybe only play him 140 games the first year of a 2-year deal, and just make sure he stays healthy and you have him for the long run. It's interesting to think about, Juice. It really is. But I have one more question for you, my friend, with the winter meetings before we go ahead and continue our conversation here tonight. What is your pick for the most aggressive team at the winter meetings? Who makes the most signings for the most money at the winter meetings?
I want to say it's us.
Likewise. Assuming it's not the Cubs.
I don't know why this team continues to stick in my mind, but San Francisco. They've struck out like 2 straight off seasons of being in on guys, and they seem like the team that's going to overpay for Cody Bellinger. Like I am so that just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
He can play in that outfield. It's a difficult one to play. He is a West Coast kid. Like he fits their mold too of like the players that usually wear that uniform. And that's why like I wonder if Cody signs prior to Shohei Ohtani.
Ooh.
I do think there's a chance that happens because there's so much rumor about his market. And as the days go on, I get less and less confident they're signing Cody Bellinger back. Because I think if they were going to do it, they would have did it already.
Yeah.
Like post off season, yeah, he knows how we feel about him, all that jazz that they talked about. They would have went to Cody and went, "What's the number? We'll get it done right now." But as these like conversations with Shohei Ohtani come out, and like there just seems to be money that's being allocated elsewhere. I wonder what the Cubs are going to do at center field. That's an interesting conversation that no one's having either.
Let's have it then, Juice, because I think this is one that I find myself wrestling with. My dad and I were wrestling with this as well. Who do you think the Cubs can target, or who do you think's even playing there, Juice, for the Cubs this upcoming season?
I don't know. Honestly, Jung-Ho Lee would be if I'm going to dip into free agency.
Oh, okay.
That's a name that interests me. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, we went over this. We were talking in the group chat about this, how bad that center field market is. It's just – other than Bellinger, there's not a lot of names. I mean, Michael Taylor, like that's a name that he hit like 20-some home runs, I think, last year. But he strikes out so much. Plays a decent center field, and he's getting older too. I think he's like 33, 34.
Yeah, 33.
Getting up there. I mean, Kevin Kiermaier, I feel like
he was a 3.2 WAR player last year, Juice. His brother's the Fields groundkeeper for the Cubs.
I wouldn't hate it.
1-year deal.
That's one of those guys that like you just throw in the 9-hole and just go, yeah, here. Like,
whatever you give us and go play defense. He had a really good season with the Blue Jays last year. It kind of flew under the radar. I think just getting out of Tampa was something that he maybe needed to do in order to kind of, right the ship perhaps.
But the center field market this year just sucks. And then there's so many outfielders that they can't play it.
But Juice, there's 1-year deal can never go too bad.
No, it's true.
Scott said earlier, why not take a shot on Kiermaier? Maybe you put even an opt-out clause in the contract that if shit's not working out by June 15th, he gets to become a free agent and is guaranteed his salary or something. And you pay him. Maybe Paul DeYoung got $1.5 million. You could probably get Kevin Kiermaier for $7.5 million. Just to play center until maybe Canario's able to play it every day. Maybe Morel ends up having to play out there this year. Maybe it is PCA. We don't know yet. Because, like you said, this market is brutal, dude. Kiermaier's the second best by WAR as listed on MLB.com.
Bad.
Bellinger's number 1. Then it's Taylor, Adam Duvall, Harrison Bader, noted Cubs killer. Could he become a Cubs legend? Aaron Hicks.
I would feel dirty.
Speaking of Cubs legends, Juice, Rafael Ortega, 33-year-old Rafael Ortega with a 1.2 WAR.
Pass.
Jake Marisnick, Billy Hamilton, Adam Engel, White Sox legend, Kyle Lewis, and Jackie Bradley Jr. Remember when Jackie Bradley Jr. was going to be a Cub, Juice?
For so long. I'm glad he didn't.
So long. Like, it's really an interesting group, and we have some comments here about that center field. Scott says PCA, Talkman, and Canario rotate in center, play the hot hand. I think all things considered, it could end up to that point, but who knows, right? I guess
how many outfielders you carrying? At that point, what are you carrying, like 7?
You would have to carry at least 5.
Well, I mean, can you count if Morel's on the roster? That's technically, but I guess that's utility. You can't really.
He's really utility.
I mean,
that's guy. A lot of names. Yeah, Bernie says Talkman. Do you trust Talkman to be the everyday guy for a long time?
See, this is the other thing, too, that we never really talk about is, like, you're never going to solve every position in one offseason.
No.
There's going to be one position that we're like, man, we just suck at that.
I think it's not what we do.
Yeah. I think that is a battle between first base, center field this year, and third.
Yeah.
We should be happy if we solve 2. And, I mean, I don't like Talkman, But if they're going to platoon it with Canario, or maybe they do trust PCA, or maybe they bring in, like I said, like a Michael Taylor, and they just lefty-righty it, I wouldn't hate that. I mean, Talkman and Michael Taylor, and you let Taylor play against righties and Talkman against lefties.
Yeah, maybe.
Although did Talkman have a good season against left-handers?
I think he did. I think it was part of the reason his OPS was so high. But Juice, on that topic, I agree with you, because if you look at those positions on the free agent market, they're pretty depleted overall. Third base, Matt Chapman's obviously the big name. 31-year-old, though. It doesn't seem like the Cubs have really been linked to him at all. Some people have picked the Cubs to potentially sign him, and I think there's a world where they could, but probably not most likely. But on that list, Candelario, Urshela, Donaldson, Longoria, washed up version of Evan Longoria at this point in his career. And then Juice at first base as well, like you mentioned. Hoskins, Carlos Santana, Brandon Belt, a name that was brought up on Marquee Sports Network as a potential bargain bin because he mashes breaking ball pitchers.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
G-Man Choi, CJ Crone, the list goes on and on. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I agree with you. There's going to be one position on this Cubs team that they didn't do the best job maybe filling it, and it's going to be a little bit of kind of trial by error at that spot. But again, if you hit big on the other positions, the Ohtani, as we mentioned, maybe an Alonso, what have you, then you can afford finagle that. And a resurgent Seiya Suzuki maybe also changes that narrative as well. Juice, to deviate a little bit away from what we're talking about here and kind of to slow down the show here as well before we get to maybe a hot take or two and sign off. We were talking a little bit earlier about this Ohtani idea of escalators in the contract. And I think it's fascinating for the real true baseball off-season nerds like Juice and I think you guys will appreciate this conversation. Can you kind of summarize in a quick version of what Julio Rodriguez's contract is, and then we can talk through how to apply that to the Cubs, potentially with a player like Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah, so Julio Rodriguez's contract is really, really interesting in terms of being a 23-year-old. He's built in a lot of escalators within his contract. So his base salary in 2024 is roughly $12 million, but it could be $29 million. And a lot of it has to do with MVP votes and Silver Slugger awards and all-star selections, and these escalators then too build as his contract goes. So for example, if by his year 20 or 2030, which would be he'd be 29 at that point, if he has 8 combined Silver Slugger or all-star selections, his back half of the contract changes differently, and it's more expensive. Mm-hmm. And it also allows him at 30, they've built in an opt-out. So the interesting thing that I was starting to think, and I've read some things on some nerdy baseball websites that I like to do, and it's just something I thought that I wanted to bring to the show, which would be interesting in like the first couple years of this Shohei contract, if they could build in more escalators for that, considering the fact that yes, he is not going to be able to pitch all of next year. Maybe your base salary is this way, but then as the contract matures, there's more built in for number of starts, Cy Young awards, strikeouts, things like that, to where it puts almost the player at a base salary that he knows he's earning this, but he can earn this, and it protects, his arm and what he could contribute, but also in retrospect doesn't negate the cap room, which would be interesting because I think that, him coming from a team like the Angels to where Mike Trout had that huge number that was built, you can make the argument that some of that money has negated what they could do around him. So if Shohei Ohtani truly wants to win, which, I mean, some of the reports say that he only wants to go to a contender. He only wants to go to teams that are going to be able to, contend year in and year out. He wants to be in the postseason. A good way for him to do that while also earning money is to build in these escalators and help out the ball club to where, yeah, he's probably still making a huge base salary, but depending on how many he starts, it could help him out, earn more, but also it doesn't hamstring the roster build that they can do. So it's a curious thought. It's something that I think at the end of the day, if I were betting, it won't look much like this, but it'd be interesting to be fly on the wall in the room to see if this is something that's been brought up, because I wonder if baseball contracts are going to look somewhat more like this for younger players and or guys like Shohei Ohtani who are just unicorns, to where maybe you protect yourself by having a high base salary plus escalators, because as you see, as these baseball contracts go, you sign your contract and it seems like within a year or 2 years, you're already underpaid, because a lot of these guys that get these high ABVs, they set the record and then somebody comes over the top and pays more for somebody else. So maybe a way that you negate leaving money on the table is high base salary and escalators and opt-outs. And maybe they can, figure out a way for young players plus Shohei to do this while he's not the most healthy. This is the kicker with negotiating his contract, and the hard part is he's not going to be able to pitch next year. So how do you value this first year? And maybe, just maybe, Shohei Ohtani looks at it and goes, all right, well, I can't pitch. I know you need to go get pitching. Let's build in the batting incentives this year. And then after next year, we'll build them all in for, batting plus, innings pitched and wins, and not wins. He's probably not, looking at player wins, because pitchers don't like to do that. That's risky. But innings pitched and strikeouts and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's such a fascinating idea, because like you said, I feel like we talked about this similarly in a lot of ways to the Marcus Stroman situation, because at the time that was kind of a unicorn contract in the sense of, he could have easily probably gotten a 5 or 6 year deal to go somewhere. Instead, he was okay taking what effectively became just a 2-year contract to join the Cubs and pitched pretty well overall, if we're being honest, besides obviously getting hurt and then, really just getting hurt, right? Got hurt early on and then got hurt late in those 2 years, but he's on the free agent market, could make more than his $21 million player option that was built into that contract. Maybe it's a similar aspect, Juice, like you said, but now these escalators make these contracts a little more complicated, but that complexity gives more opportunity for more money for the player and still allows the ball club to potentially, finagle their way around things if things either don't go right or you want to try and go add. I think the escalator idea might be that next kind of weird wrinkle we start to see in baseball, where the opt-outs became a big thing, right? Like very quickly, guys getting that 3rd or 4th year opt-out. Manny Machado, I think, is the first player we've seen it fully through. He got to that opt-out point, opted out, and got more money from the Padres just extended him, and it negated some of the options. But at the end of the day, like, that happened, right? I think there's a new complexity coming with contracts, and I think the Julio Rodriguez contract set the bar, and maybe Ohtani follows suit, like you said.
Yeah, I want to go, and this is the other thing too. Like, this was an initial thought, because Ron, as we got onto the mic, Ron's like, "What are you reading?" Because he could see my eyes pretty much in the mad scientist. Just to go back to Papa Luce, the mad scientist look I had in my eye. But yeah, I want to go deeper down this rabbit hole and investigate his contract even more and try to. I bet you there's wrinkles in this that the Cubs could add in that aren't even thought of yet in terms of, post baseball career. That's the other. I wonder if we ever get to the point where players have like post baseball career, not escalators in their contract, but promises. Like how interesting would it be to, like, post baseball career, not that you're making money, but maybe you're bought in on, merch, jersey post, because think about it. Like if you're a Hall of Famer, going to be a Hall of Famer and going into the Hall of Fame, could you build yourself into the percentage of market that you could take home a percentage revenue check from jersey sales? Yeah. I think it's possible. it's much like, I just watched Air the other day. It'd be interesting to see, and everybody talks about how Michael Jordan changed the shoe game. Like, one of these guys is going to come around and do something of that magnitude, I think. I think we're going to look at – there's some interesting things that Shohei Ohtani could, request too, which, players, as these things go, it gets more and more creative. And I've gotten way too mad scientist for this episode, to be honest with you.
This is some heavy mad scientist. And Juice, maybe we'll have to just get mad scientist thoughts of the day or something on a daily basis now leading up to the winter meetings from you, because it is fascinating. There's going to be so much movement coming up here at these winter meetings. And dude, I'm ready for them. I know you are too, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. We've hit that hour mark. So Juice, let's get into one last topic before we wind down the show. Hot takes. How many hot takes do you want to do? 2, maybe 3 that are going to happen this offseason with the Cubs? What's a hot take?
I didn't believe it last time around the mic, but as this time goes, I am next to guaranteeing that Shohei Ohtani is a Cub by the end of next week.
That is spicy.
That's the hottest take I have, and I don't have any basis other than the fact of what I talked about earlier. And I feel like that silence, it always seems like Jed and all these guys are doing their best work when it's quiet. I remember thinking back to 2015 to where they signed John Lester, going into that 2015 season. And that was something that quiet, boom. You know what I mean? It was
true.
linked. It was linked, but John Lester had so many suitors that year. This is very similar to that feeling it had, post, 2014 when they all were trying to load up for 15. I feel quietly confident that he's not going to LA. I don't know why. Maybe it goes back to I think it was, who was in here that said it's too damn obvious. Mm-hmm. LA is too obvious.
That was a lop.
It's too damn obvious to be LA. It just is. And in my opinion too, if they get in a bidding war with the Giants, I think that the Cubs can spend more. I really do. It just is a matter of what they'll okay and what they'll sign off on. And it just makes so much sense to be in on a player like this. It really does. The time of marquee and the streaming wars that's going on, a little South Park reference there, little streaming wars that's going on, and the time to build the brand. And I find it so weird that the Cubs are running it's time to be a Cub is their their motto. I feel like that's the Cubs are getting a big name in this offseason, 100%. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Just a matter, is it Shohei Ohtani? And honestly, Shohei Ohtani has to pick them. And I think that the Cubs are putting themselves in the right spot. And I'm bought in. I'm ready to be hurt, as Johnny Nani said.
Johnny Nani, never get up for the letdown. But we're getting up for any potential letdown here, Juice. I think that's a great hot take. Everybody agreeing with you in the comments, saying that is scorching hot, and everybody's a fan of it. One interesting wrinkle, this is maybe a hot take question from the comment section here, Juice. My dad says, let me throw in a wrinkle. What about Bregman for third bases? He's been reported available. Would you check in if you're the Chicago Cubs on the Houston Astros third baseman?
Yeah, you gotta, right? He's one of the best in the game. He's a proven postseason, contributor, a guy who's been there, done it a million times. that's a winning player. Like that's one of those guys that like you bring into the locker room with some of these guys who are younger and haven't experienced. That's the other thing too. I don't think we've talked about that at all either. The Cubs need to start bringing in people who have been in the big dance too that aren't Dansby Swanson. Like the Cubs need more veteran leadership that is not, has been around the block a time or two. And yeah, that name will make sense. And that name will make a lot of sense. I don't know how they would, finagle that. Be interesting to see what a trade package for him even looks like. But 100%. Yeah, I mean, you got to check in.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, you got to at least make a phone call. And if it's too rich, that's fine. You move on. But maybe there's something there to be had. A lot chiming in. Cubs just made Marquee a standalone streaming option. What a better way to get subscribers than signing Ohtani, giving the fans a reason to buy in. 100% agree. Juice, my hot take. You said the Giants earlier about being the most active team and, really just – kind of going for it and being a little bit all over the place. You see that name a lot and you go, whoa, okay, they're going for it. It's this one. I know you're Giants. I agree. I like the Giants name if I had to pick a team that wasn't the Chicago Cubs. But Juice, my hot take is the Cubs will be the most active team at the winter meetings. And that might not necessarily mean all free agent signings. I think that could mean trades. Everybody's in the same building together. You don't have to pick up the phone and hang up and go talk with your personnel. There are on the spot just negotiations and decisions happening. And maybe there's a lot of things that these GMs kind of plugged in each other's ears leading into the winter meetings. Why has it been so quiet? Because everybody's just setting up all the chess pieces for what should be a pretty eventful winter meetings from Major League Baseball. My hot take, the Cubs are going to be the most active team in less than a week. Scott's hot take, Cubs trade for Corbin Burns. That would be a spicy one. Not only did we steal their manager, but steal their ace as well in the process. That'd be kind of cool. Not going to lie to you, but Juice, any final thoughts, buddy, before we wrap this thing up and sign off for the night?
Jed, I'm sending you a message. Get some rest prior to this. And be the shark at the poker table.
I like that.
That's my. I want him to go in and have all the cards in his hand and know he does, and to go, all right, who we dealing with here? Because I think it's going to take a big personality to win this offseason. I don't think you can just sit in the weeds and poke out and grab something. I think that it's going to take a lot of that energy he had with getting Craig Counsell of going and getting it.
Yeah.
I hope he brings into the winter meetings because I think that's a good, successful strategy going into what's going on with teams this year. Looking at, the regional sports network angles and, teams trying to rid of payroll. There's a lot of opportunity here to sit and be the type of aggressive manager that knows they have the backing and the financial infrastructure that's needed to win and to have a young and, very strong team along with a strong farm system as well to make some trades and make some moves. Because I think that there's a lot out there. And it's just about figuring, who's needed to bring what back, and then just going and doing it. Because I think whoever sits in this free agency and just waits and tries to get something is going to be the one that's holding, the balloon at the end and doesn't have much. It's going to be pretty wild.
Being aggressive, I think, is certainly going to be a big key this winter. Alab says the silence is deafening, not much in terms of Cubs and Ohtani. Juice 100% correct. And he says Jed will be playing poker while other GMs play Go Fish. It's going to be a fun one. I'm excited. I know you are, Juice. And as a reminder to everybody, my final thought, Juice, we're probably not back on a microphone until night one of the winter meetings. Game plan, you will hear from us next Monday. Maybe a little bit of a live stream. How awesome would it be if you're tuned in with us here on the YouTube, on X, on Facebook, and we're watching together as the Cubs make a big move on Monday night. However, something big happens the rest of this week. There's certainly a chance you will hear from the boys here at Cubs on Tap before Monday. However, we're guaranteed to be with you hopefully on Monday night. So be sure to tune in for that. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell button over on Facebook. You can join the conversation like all of our great commenters tonight. Shout out to all of you, and thank you for joining us. Juice, as always, Cubs on Tap, one of two official Cubs podcasts here at the On Tap Sports Network. Check out our friends over at the Dingers podcast at Dinger Cubs on the socials. Be sure to find us as well at Cubbies on Tap, Cubbies. I am at Luce on Tap, Juice on Tap, Joey Knows Nothing, Teddy Freddy 270, Nick _on Tap, and all the boys here that help support the Cubs side of the house at On Tap Sports Network. Be sure to check out all the good stuff as well for the Blackhawks, the Bears, the Bulls. Bears on Tap was live earlier. Juice was joining our buddy Quentin over there for that show. Unfortunately, not able to join the boys this evening. Check out the Bulls. They were just live. They have been after every game all season long. And the Blackhawks, Juice, made a trade tonight after all the crazy Corey Perry chaos. Be sure to find all of that as well over at OnTap Sportsnet, www.ontapsportsnet.com, at OnTap Sports on the socials. Oh, and by the way, we do have the other baseball team in town that's owned by Jerry Reinsdorf. Check out our friends over at Sox on Tap. Who? Those guys on the other side of the city, Juice.
Those guys. They suck.
Those guys. Yeah, those guys. You could send your friends to our friends and they can be friends. Again, ontapsportsnet.com, at ontapsportsnet on the socials, the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Juice, it's always a pleasure, buddy. We appreciate, again, all of our commenters. Thank you very much.
One last question for you.
Ooh, hit me with it.
Who breaks the Ohtani news? Which reporter?
Jeff Passan.
Okay.
Who's your pick?
Yeah, probably Passan.
Probably
Passan's
Passan.
got all the, yeah.
Passan's got it all up his sleeves.
Shams?
That'd be really cool if Shams broke it.
What if we just get a random Woj bomb out of the way? Just
that would be incredible. Absolutely incredible. Who knows? It'll be fun to see, man. But Juice, what do you say, buddy? We get out here the only way we know how at Cubs on Tap?
FTC, baby. FTC.
And let's go.